Welcome back to another lesson on guns and gun culture, where I teach you the very basics of what you should know, either as a gun owner, a gun enthusiast, or even as a gun hater. In this episode, we're going to go over rifles, handguns, and shotguns. I'm going to be talking about what they are and what sets them apart from each other. I should clarify now that I'm not an expert in any form of firearms technology or tactics, so if I get anything wrong or leave out any pertinent information, I'm sorry, and please don't hesitate to let me know in the comments. So let's get started. Rifles. What are they really? The ATF identifies a rifle as a weapon designed or redesigned, made or remade, and intended to be fired from the shoulder, and designed or redesigned and made or remade to use the energy of the explosive in a fixed metallic cartridge to fire only a single projectile through a rifled bore for each single pull of the trigger. To put this in more simple terms, a rifle is a gun that is designed to be placed against your shoulder to be fired correctly, and which shoots one bullet from a cartridge out of a rifled bore. The rifle gets its name from rifling. Now, rifling refers to the grooves that are put inside the barrel of a gun. These grooves cause the bullet to spin when it's fired. The spin causes the bullet to fly straighter, kind of like a football. Now, rifles can come in many different configurations. They can be long, they can be short, they can fire large calibers or small calibers, and they can use all sorts of different actions, like lever action, bolt action, semi-auto, full auto, whatever. But whichever caliber or action it uses, if it fires cartridges and you have to put it against your shoulder to use it, chances are it's a rifle. So let's talk about shotguns. Shotguns are pretty interesting. On the surface, they seem pretty similar to rifles, but there are actually a number of significant differences between the two. The ATF definition of a shotgun is a weapon designed or redesigned, made or remade, and intended to be fired from the shoulder, and designed or redesigned and made or remade to use the energy of the explosive in a fixed shotgun shell to fire through a smooth bore, either a number of ball shot or a single projectile for each single pull of the trigger. So one of the key differences between shotguns and rifles is that shotguns are smoothbore. This means that the barrel doesn't have any rifling. Also, if you watched my last video, you'll know all about cartridges. Now, the cartridges I talked about in that video are a bit different than what shotguns use. Shotguns use shotgun shells. A shotgun shell works mostly the same way that, say, a .223 cartridge works, only instead of being made of metal, most of it is made out of plastic. And instead of firing a single bullet, they typically shoot a bundle of little balls. These balls are called shot. That's where we get the name shotgun. However, shotgun shells can also house what are called slugs. Slugs are basically giant bullets. So if instead of hitting your target with a bunch of little pellets, you want to punch a fist-sized hole through them, slugs can be a good option. Shotgun shells are typically not measured in millimeter or caliber, such as normal cartridges are, but instead are measured by gauge. Now, gauge is a little hard to explain, but just know that the smaller the gauge, the bigger the gun's bore. 12 gauge is generally considered the standard for most shotguns, but they can be found in 20 gauge, 10 gauge, and others. But ultimately, the defining characteristics that make a shotgun are that it's going to be smooth bore, it fires shotgun shells, and it's fired from the shoulder. There are exceptions, but those are the basics. So last, but certainly not least, handguns. The ATF defines a handgun as a weapon originally designed, made, and intended to fire a projectile, a bullet, from one or more barrels when held in one hand, and having a chamber as an integral part of or permanently aligned with the bore, and a short stock designed to be gripped by one hand at an angle to and extending below the line of the bore. It should be noted that most handguns have rifled barrels. This does not make them rifles, since handguns are not meant to be placed against the shoulder while being fired, but instead just held in your hands. I should also mention that most handguns shoot bullets that are of a higher caliber than most rifles. Remember that caliber is the diameter of the bullet. Well, technically it's the diameter of the gun's bore, but whatever. The AR-15, which is kind of like the standard general-purpose rifle here in the US, fires a bullet that is only like 60-something% the diameter of a 9mm bullet that a handgun might fire. So when you hear someone say that the AR-15 is a very high caliber gun, just know that that person doesn't know what the hell they're talking about. But to conclude, within these very brief definitions and explanations of what these types of guns are, there exists a lot of exceptions and crossover. For example, some shotguns have rifle barrels, and some pistols fire shotgun shells. Some rifles aren't meant to be put against your shoulder and are therefore classified as pistols, and the list goes on and on. Firearms technology is really fascinating, and sometimes manufacturers make weird guns that challenge legal definitions. So, as cool as this is, you need to be very sure that you know exactly what type of gun your firearm qualifies as, because if you're going to be committing felonies, you may as well do it on purpose. But anyways, these are the basic definitions and what separates the big 3 different types of firearms. Hopefully you learned something. If I missed anything, got anything wrong, or have something that you think I should cover in the future, please let me know in the comments. I also want to take this time to say thank you. Thank you for learning new things and trying to become a more knowledgeable person. Regardless of your personal stance on guns, I appreciate you and I'm proud of you. So thank you for watching. Stay safe. Class dismissed.